It's so nice that all of you have come to see me live and buy tickets because I can't do that. Like, a bad show means I'm bad. A bad video means I'm bad. A bad joke means I'm bad. My wife is like, what are you worried about? I'm like, I don't know, Trey. Maybe I'm worried about the show not doing well. Maybe I'm worried that why have I still have a career? Maybe I'm worried about how long will this last. Maybe I'm worried if this lasts long, I have to keep being funny for the rest of my life. This uncertainty has ruined my life, Sid. So every time I come on stage, I am like, none of this should exist.
Welcome to the Sid Warrior podcast. On the show, we've had so many amazing guests, but today's guest is one that I have been wanting to have on for a long time. He's one of the funniest comics I know. His was the first stand-up show that I had ever attended live back in 2012, and he's a fellow Malayali. My friends, on today's show, we have Kenny Sebastian. And before we get to the podcast, I must warn you, this conversation started in the most Kenny way possible, naturally, in the middle of laughter, in a conversation around Malayali weddings. Enjoy.
No. See, nobody's going to notice. But like wedding dress takes like months and months and months of planning.
Correct. So did she have a backup wedding dress?
I mean, no, it was too expensive. But we had a backup makeup and hair person. Guess what happened? The person fell sick. And we had a backup person. And we were fine.
You know the number of brides in the country who would relate to this topic?
Yeah.
Because this makeup artist falling sick or coming late on the day of the event is really common.
It's too important. You cannot... Like, I learned this from stand-up shoots also. Where there was a shoot of this comic and he had a prop on stage. And everybody has these expensive lakh worth cameras, blah, blah, blah. They're stressing over that. And that one prop, they had only one. And the comic used that prop. So it had to be reset. And they couldn't reset it. So the entire shoot got delayed by 30 minutes.
Wow.
Because you forget that if that gets messed, what's in frame gets messed, none of this matters. Catering and all of that doesn't matter.
Right.
So I learned it from
So these are lessons that you learn from being on stage at these live events.
Yeah.
Enough number of times. So enough number of mistakes have to have happened in your life for you to
so many mistakes.
Learn these.
So many mistakes. Yeah.
So what was the major one in your stand-up career? The major mistake that really changed or tipped something for you?
Oh, I think I'm still making that mistake. I think we were just talking about this. I think there's a certain expectation the world and audience has with if you reach an amount of audience and they want more from you, you're supposed to consistently give them that. And I think if I had done that more consistently instead of me experimenting, I think I would have grown far more bigger than I am now. But I don't have a regret, but I know that this is not something I would recommend for other people.
What does that mean? So if you knew what the audience is expecting from you, what does that mean? Like,
for example, I have this show called Chai Time, which is a show where I sit and I have props and do comedy.
I've attended one of those.
You've
yes,
come?
At Habitat, the old one.
Yeah. And I really, really love doing that. And the audience really likes it. And then I stopped it. And every day I get messages about Chai Time and do more. And in my head, I know that the right thing to do for many artists is that you should just keep Chai Time going and start other new things.
Right.
But I stopped it. And I know I should continue it, but it's just that it kills me to do something when it feels like a job. I did the last episode, and that last episode I was really struggling. I was like, what do I do? I have this Chai Time shoot. I don't have a great idea. And then I caught myself complaining about my own idea. Right. That's when I knew it was done.
Right.
And I feel this mistake is going to cost me constantly. Like I constantly stop things the moment it stops feeling organic. You know.
I so relate to this because I was talking to a friend of mine recently about discipline.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody says you should be disciplined, but what people don't understand is that there are levels of discipline.
Yeah.
So there is one set of discipline where your motivation is coming from emotions.
Yeah.
you're doing it because it feels good.
Yeah.
And as soon as it stops feeling good, you will stop it.
Yeah.
Right. And the other one is, it doesn't matter if it feels good or not. I will just keep doing it.
True.
So that's like as a neuroscientist,
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's a prefrontal cortex
Yeah.
discipline.
And I would follow that with working out and eating.
Right. What is the difference?
It's not a choice. I have to work out. Even if I am tired, not feeling it and I don't want to do it. I know that this is a non-negotiable thing for my body. It's not a mood-based thing. And eating right is also like, I hate this chicken breast and vegetables. I really want to have some rice and some bread.
Right.
But I know that it's bad for me. It doesn't matter what I'm craving. Right. This is good for me. Right. So that I understand is, it has a function. But for me, when it comes to creative stuff, I have to follow the heart a bit. Because I keep reminding myself, why did I do this when I was 17, 18? It was just because I just love the experience of having an idea and being excited about it and telling people about it. And if it's anything other than that, I should just do a job then.
Wow. I want to go a little deeper into this. Yeah. So there's a concept of downside protection.
Okay.
Which is, are you trying to minimize the negative impact, or are you trying to solve the maximum output that you can get?
Oh.
So the diet and exercise thing is downside protection, which is, when I'm 80, I don't want to have a fracture if I fall. So that's why your bones should be strong. That's why I need to work out. So that has to start now.
Yeah.
So you're trying to minimize the risk of something bad happening. Whereas with creativity or work, you could say that you're trying to see how much fun you can have, how high you can go. So these feel like two, different motivations.
And it's also clear. There is no counter argument to being fit. You have to be fit, and there is no catch-up game with fitness. You can obviously anytime in your life choose to become fit, but it's always recommend you do it from as young as you can, as consistent you can. So in my brain, I'm like, I can't counter argue out of it.
Right.
That I'll take rest for 1 year and then next year I'll eat right and work. I just know that if I do it consistently, all research and study says you have to do it.
Yeah.
But with creativity, there's no such research and study. It's very subjective. It's very mood based. But I'm not saying that everything I do with work is like that. Like if we have a 60 city tour over like 9 months, that's my job. I'm not like, aaj mood nahi hai. That I'm very like, even if I'm sick, I'll do it. It's the germination and the end reason of why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like while booking that 60 city tour, I'm just like, mujhe karna hi nahi hai. I just want money. Then I'm like, then don't do it. Find another way to make money.
I like the analogy of the 60 city tour because it is finite.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things a brain finds it easier if it's a finite thing. Ki chalo tumko 3 mahina kaam karna hai. Done.
Yeah.
But chai time seems infinite.
That's true. Yeah.
For as long as you live, you can keep doing it.
And I feel this is a problem that, I don't know, I've experienced with me and my stand-up colleagues. We really, it's a part of who we are. It's not a job. I think we get very scared that what am I becoming? And I feel envious of people who can compartmentalize creativity as well.
Okay.
Where they are like, no, this is just an aspect of me. I always envy Tracy. She's my wife. She's a dentist, and I'm in awe how she can compartmentalize dentistry.
Right.
I can't do that. Like a bad show means I'm bad. A bad video means I'm bad. A bad joke means I'm bad.
Right.
So with chai time, it's like, if I am not happy doing chai time, that means I'm not happy being me. And I think this is a unique problem
with artists and performers.
I won't blanket art. I think with stand-up comedians, and I've noticed with my colleagues also that we find common ground in this.
Got it. This is very interesting because as a doctor, I've had bad days, and a bad day for a doctor can get really bad, right? At the hospital, something. But
I think it's like the hardest job
when I think about it. Yes, but because you go through that in residency, you realize that if you really allow a bad day to influence you to the amount that it should, you won't be able to go back.
Yeah.
It's a bit too much.
Yeah.
So you do learn to compartmentalize very quickly, because
No, you're at God level compartmentalizing, because I don't even know how you compartmentalize. Like, failure for you is risk of death,
Yes.
which is insane.
If you think about it,
Yeah.
I think the key is to not think about it.
No, but you have to have that coping mechanism, because
Yeah.
there is no solution. The
Yeah.
solution is don't consider death as failure.
Yeah, because in every other situation, so for example, if you're giving a productivity talk,
Yeah.
you say it's not failure, it's feedback.
Yeah.
But sometimes failure is failure.
Yeah. What is the negative outcome? People are not inspired enough from your talk.
Correct.
But if you fail,
Yes.
somebody is going to die. So
Yes.
it's just a blessing that anybody has chosen this crazy profession
Yeah.
to save lives. And if it's either you save a life or you don't, and that's
But I'm going to bring it back to the principle still holds. So if, as a stand-up comic, if you go out there and you make a joke,
Yeah.
are you saying that nobody has figured out that this is just a job and I can come back and be normal?
so I've verbalized the issue.
Huh.
The issue is that most jobs are tangible, and they're an outcome of of a physical activity. You're a neurosurgeon. Your job is from your brains and your hands coordinating and doing a surgery, right? And if your hands and your neurosurgeon brain is not active, you're not a neurosurgeon. I'm just sitting across to you and I'm having a conversation with you. A comedian, an aspect of my personality is my job. I'm not doing an activity, like I'm not removing a root canal, I'm not fixing an engine. I am showing you an aspect of my personality which happens to be funny
Right.
and engaging and entertaining.
Right.
And I'm earning money from that.
Yeah.
So it's not like I can switch off an aspect of my personality.
Right.
So if I sit with you, there is still that expectation of Kenny's going to be funny at some point, right? But I have no expectation from you right now. We're not in a hospital.
Correct.
I'm not expecting you.
Oh, so you're saying a doctor can not be a doctor in some situations, but
Yeah.
a comic can never not be a comic.
It's kind of with a lot of art forms, like an actor, a singer. They also actually have a better bifurcation, because actor also has to act in a setting. A singer also has to sing in a setting.
Right.
But a comedian
Has to be
must
funny.
be funny. And what does funny mean? It's an aspect of somebody's personality, and which I have monetized, and which is a career.
Right.
That's why there's a lot of abuse of the profession. Like, why you're
Wow.
not interesting right now? Why you're not funny?
Yeah. Or
it's just
worse, what if you're having a low day?
That's what. So what does your low day even mean, right? So when someone says you have a show, buck up. I'm like, how can I buck up? Like, this joke germinated from me having a happy day.
Right.
Then I wrote it down. Then I practiced it. And now my emotion translated into a product.
Right.
And now you're saying, no, detach how the product came to being. If you're having a low day, it doesn't matter, still perform. But I'm like, yo, this whole thing is happening because of who I am.
Right.
So it's a very muddled, there's no line.
Yeah. Like, for example, in medicine, there is a algorithm.
Yeah.
So there are criterias for if the patient comes with this is what you have to do.
True.
And your personality gets attached on top of it. But even if it doesn't, the core treatment would still work.
Yeah.
The patient might feel better if you're more empathetic, but the core treatment will still work.
That's a bonus.
It's a bonus.
Yeah.
Does that happen with a joke?
No, as people don't know that if you've talked to many comics, same joke, word to word, same rhythm. You do a show at 6 p.m. in the same city, in the same venue. That joke gets a laugh. 8 p.m. show doesn't get a laugh. You're like, I know this joke works. I'm in the same city. I'm in the same venue also. People have changed. Vibe has changed. Joke doesn't work. And there's no answer. It could be maybe they're sleepy. Maybe I didn't say the joke properly. Maybe they didn't hear me properly. Maybe they heard me but decided not to. Nobody knows. So it's so intangible that it's annoying.
I bet. So one of the things that bothers, in fact, forget one of the things. I think the only thing that bothers people is uncertainty.
Yeah.
In life overall. That is the crux of anxiety.
Yeah.
If something was certain, right? If it's 100% going to happen, anxiety wouldn't be there. What you are describing sounds so anxiety inducing
Yeah.
that, wait, will the person laugh or not?
Yeah.
And if you didn't know for sure,
That's why it sounds like I'm whining about my profession, but that's why the joy when it works is so amazing.
right.
Because you're like, there is no reason for this to work. Because there's so many reasons for this joke not to work. Like the context of stand-up comedy is so bizarre where I know we're gonna get into that, but it's essentially a bunch of strangers are sat in a room expecting to laugh and they paid
Yes.
money.
Yes.
A comedian comes on stage. You don't know this person. You don't know them personally. You don't know their background. And they start talking. And laughter is an involuntary reaction. You laugh first and then you realize why you laughed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people laugh and they apologize. Because they're like, I didn't mean to do that. It just happened. So the reaction is involuntary. The reaction is genuine. And laughter, also I've read, is actually a very personal emotion. Apparently, you laugh more when you know the person personally.
Yeah.
And it's also a social thing, apparently. I read about this, that people, when they watch something alone in a bed, they just chuckle. But if there's one more person sitting next to them, they laugh. So there's that social aspect to it. And so this scenario is so strange that a stranger goes into a room full of strangers. One person is talking, 1,000 people are listening. He's talking or she's talking about his own life, which connects at such a unconscious level that they involuntarily laugh.
Yeah.
And this happens for an hour and then they leave. So there's nothing. So every time I come on stage, I am like, none of this should exist, but it does. Like, if I have a brain issue, I'm gonna come to you. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You have 20 years of experience, and that's why I've chosen you over someone with 10 years experience.
Yeah.
Comedy is not like that. A kid who's 18, who's funnier, could be doing better than a 40-year-old comedian.
Correct.
So this uncertainty has ruined my life set. My wife is like, what are you worried about? I'm like, I don't know, Trace.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm worried about the show not doing well. Maybe I'm worried that why have I still have a career? Maybe I'm worried about how long will this last? Maybe I'm worried if this lasts long, I have to keep being funny for the rest of my life.
Oof.
So there's no certainty.
I have so much. My respect for stand-up comics have just gone so high.
No. I mean, I'm sure every job has this, but
Yeah.
I'm just talking from my.
But the level of uncertainty, I think people do need to appreciate this, because you're right. Every job comes with this level of some uncertainty, which is also what separates good from average in any job. So medicine has uncertainty. The day medicine solves uncertainty is the day doctors are no longer needed. Right? Because if you solve uncertainty, that means it is understood to a point where no judgment is required or no experience is required. You need experience to solve the uncertainty. So I'm guessing that it is uncertainty that separates out a population. How you deal with uncertainty is what separates out a population.
Yeah.
That's what separates like good from the average from the bad. I think people need to appreciate how much uncertainty there is in stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I want to ask you, in your profession, I feel the uncertainty comes from the fact that you're dealing with something that's an organic being. So
Yes.
even if you do everything by the book, you do the surgery, you remove a tumor.
Yes.
But in reality, you don't even know why the tumor formed in the first place, and it could come back. Or maybe another complication randomly pops up in a different part of the body.
Correct.
So that's the uncertainty you are dealing with, because it's a living, breathing, complicated organism.
Yes. And you can never know how many variables are at play here.
Yeah.
So-
it's impossible. You just have to take a strong assumption and go for it.
Correct.
Right?
So that is the difference between lab studies and human studies.
Okay.
So in lab studies, you have a controlled environment. So in vivo and in vitro.
Okay.
So in a lab study, you can say that I will have these many hormones, these many cells, and let me see how this antibiotic affects these cells in the presence of these hormones. But that same system, if you put in the body, now suddenly there are 100 more hormones, 5,000 more cells, so then the level of complexity increases to a point where a lab study may not work in a human.
Yeah.
And you don't really know why.
Yeah.
So that is the complexity that increases.
Yeah.
But again, I would say that every system or every job would have this. And my belief is that if somebody has figured out how to deal with uncertainty in one area, you can take those lessons to apply it in others.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, when you are out there and when you're on stage, uncertainty is what leads to anxiety, and anxiety is fear. Stage fear is the commonest fear that people have. And now you understand why. Because of the uncertainty. If they knew for sure that they will go up and they'll get a standing ovation, maybe they won't be so afraid, but they can't be sure of that. How does one go about it? What would you advise a kid who wants to get on stage but he's too afraid?
So first we need to address that stage fear is a legit fear because it is supposed to be that scary. Like there's a reason why people are scared to go on stage and address an audience, because it is hard. So it is not like I have this silly thing with stage fear. It's like, no, you have it's like fear of heights.
Yeah.
It could kill you. Like if you, so it's first of all, legit good fear to have, stage fear. And the reason it's so hard to get over is the uncertainty, as we were talking about, of is this organic beings in the audience.
Yeah.
You go on stage, you could be well prepared, you could be very interesting, but maybe your mic is not loud enough. Maybe the audience is tired. Maybe they want to have lunch. Maybe they looked at you and they have their own biases that, oh, you're a young boy, or you're a woman, or you look inexperienced, or you're a different race from me. You can't factor any of this into it. Right. So I guess it's kind of like your approach of the tumor thing. It's like, all I know, there's a tumor and I need to get it out. Maybe they will kill this guy. I don't know, but I know that tumor is generally a bad thing. So we should get it out.
Yeah.
So that's all you can do, is that I want to speak on stage. And that has to happen. That's what I want. Unfortunately, I don't know if it'll go well or bad, but I know I want to speak on stage. If that's what you want, start there. It's like, otherwise just cancel the event. Stage fear gone. It's like, no, I can't cancel the event. I have to speak. Okay, so you have to speak. That's the tumor identified that you want to speak. Then you go on stage and you're like, I think this topic is interesting. That's all you have. You're right, because I don't think maybe 40 people in the audience think this topic is boring. So do you still want to talk about it? If everybody in the audience was uninterested, would you still do the talk? It's like, no. Then don't do it, because...
Wow.
So it's mostly a you thing. So then the more you start... Because I'm telling you, you could practice, you could rehearse, you could... which really helps. Another reason for stage fear is not being prepared enough.
Right.
Do it 100 times. When I say 100 times, I'm not exaggerating. Do it 100 times. Stand in front of the mirror. Do it till a point where you don't have to look at the paper. And there's a beautiful threshold you cross where you start noticing where you're looking, what your hands are doing. If you've just been still, that's when you've truly like memorized it. Where you can literally memorize it so much that if your button is unbuttoned, you can button it as you're speaking. Like that's the level of familiarity with.
And is this what you do?
This is what I do, because people have fallen off stage while talking or doing a play, because that's how many things your brain has to fathom. Yeah. So if you can just get one thing out of the way, which is memorizing,
right,
your brain can focus on spatial, where I'm looking, am I being loud?
Right.
Am I looking into the co-actor's voice or into this audience's? Right. So I did a theater exercise and they said, memorize the stage. And I'm like, what a dumb exercise. It's like people have fallen off stage, Kenny. Because that's how focused they are about what they're saying.
Right.
So you do all of this, but I'm saying inherently the goal is you practice. You have to tell yourself that if I don't do this talk, I can't sleep at night. So that's why you're doing it, not for the approval. And then you go on stage and you're like, this is an idea I truly want to be heard. I think it's very interesting, and I think the way I'm saying it is interesting. And even if one person in the audience vibes with it or connects with me or enjoys it, that's enough for me. Otherwise, there's no reason for you to be on stage. And so I feel stage fear is a very good thing, because otherwise we'll have crazy people on stage talking nonstop.
So it's almost like an evolutionary thing to prevent everyone from doing it.
Yeah. No, genuinely, like if you go on stage, I used to have stage fear as a kid. It was debilitating stage fear. I used to look like this. I couldn't look up, and I was in 5th standard, 6th standard. I was just frozen like this, and I had a mouse voice, and I used to run away from stage. And I was like, I really wanna
Wow.
talk to large groups of people and talk about ideas that excite me.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody should, right? People have better things to do. It's just that.
I love it. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to summarize the 3 things that you said will help with stage fear.
Yeah.
One is practice.
Yeah.
Just people underestimate how much your body learns.
Yeah.
So if you just keep practicing the same act, the same bit 100 times, you said
100 times. I'm not
100 times.
exaggerating.
Yeah.
You do it 50 times, it'll take you 50 times to lose your paper.
Okay.
And our next 50 is you get the style, you get the cadence.
Perfect. Yeah. So put a number on it. Don't think about it too much. Just practice it 100 times and you'll feel the difference.
Yeah.
What I heard about the next point was a little bit of narcissism is good.
Yeah.
You do need to believe that you want to be up there and what you have to say is valuable. You need to go up there thinking that मुझे बोलना है, लोगों को सुनना है कि नहीं सुनना है फर्क नहीं पड़ता, but मुझे बोलना है.
It's also coming from some humility that
Okay.
people don't need to listen to you.
Okay.
And rightfully so. And if they do, you're very, very blessed and lucky. So it's mix of both.
Yes,
It's the
I love that.
narcissism of I have a great idea.
Yes.
And the acceptance that you are not entitled to anybody's attention. So don't seek it also.
Beautiful.
So it's both. Because it's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
What we're talking about.
It's such a balance. It's just a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to really build yourself up, but at the same time.
Yeah, don't get sad when nobody gave you your claps or your standing ovation.
Right.
Yeah. It's okay. You're really crazy. Why you want to go on stage and talk? You want to now? Okay, fine.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Now be grateful.
So I want to take you back to your early days,
Yeah.
which is you said that you had stage fear while growing up.
Yeah.
And at some point, you became a successful stand-up comic.
Yeah.
So many things must have happened in the middle that went up and down. Some things that proved you right, some things that proved you wrong. I believe that this is how resilience builds. So can you talk me through what your take on resilience is and what are the points that made you more resilient?
I think one thing I can say with extreme confidence that I'm insanely resilient. So no matter what happens, whatever changes, what circumstance happens, I always come back to, okay, today's a new day. We do it again. And this, I don't know why I wanted to be on stage, but there was a certain calling. I was in school and I saw confident people perform on stage. Either it was music or just talk. And I was like, I want that. And it didn't come from then I'll be popular. It just like, it seems like my body craves it. Like I want that. It seems there's no price to it. I can achieve it and I just have to work towards it. And I got into the path of stand-up. If I look at it, it was such a haphazard, chaotic way I got into it. In 10th, I wanted to make films because of YouTube. I started making films, and then I decided after 12th, I'll come to Bombay and study here a film. And my dad was like, absolutely not. I want you to have a living and a roof. So then I did. And I was also art inclined. I used to paint and draw. So then I got into an art college thinking that art college gives me free time to make films. Because I read that a lot of famous directors never went to film school.
Right.
Then I started doing films. I met a lot of these cool artists in college. Then I also used to play music. And I got it. I learned how to play the guitar and how to sing, which I self-taught because my dad would never, I think, give money for singing classes. Rightfully so. And I just learned it by listening and recording. And then as I got into music and then I heard about theater, I read somewhere that if you are a good actor, you can be a good director. And obviously if you're a good writer, you can do anything.
Right.
So I got into theater. And as I got into theater, people were like, you're very funny. You should do more funny stuff. So I was doing funny roles in like these. When I say theater, this is like some Bangalore, some small venue with some 5-6 people who are...
Right.
From Ramaya College who were doing theater. So I'm not part of some establishment. And when I used to do music, I used to make jokes between songs. And by music, I used to perform in restaurants when people were eating. And then people are like, you're very funny, but you're talking way more than singing. And then in a stand-up comedy competition, I took part and then the universe clicked.
Okay.
I could feel it. where my background from visualizing images from film, from being on theater and learning how to modulate and use the stage, from music, knowing what is catchy and attention grabbing, and from that last thing of I just want to be on stage, all clicked. And I remember that one very clearly. I was 17 years old. I was on Mood Indigo stage, and the entire audience erupted in laughter and clapped. And very few performers are lucky to get such a. But this didn't happen out of the blue. This was 3-4 years of experimenting, being on stage. That's when I knew this is what I want to do. I want to be a stand-up comedian.
Could you reverse engineer this? So could you create the set of circumstances that led you to being a stand-up comic, or does it always have to be serendipity?
I have no idea, Sid. Like, I think it's a miracle that in India, at least, the way the challenges right now are like, there are kids who are not getting education. So I think that's the main focus.
Sure.
Access to education. So like getting culture and art to be promoted and encouraged is already hard.
Right.
And when you add to it, there's no industry that pays artists enough. There's no system for it. So for me to give you an answer for India is kind of impossible, because I think let's fix basic education first and then we can get into the arts. Because arts, unfortunately, in this capitalistic world, is a privilege. It's not even sports, leave arts. Like I know so many of my friends who want to be sportsmen, but parents said no, school said no, college said no. So even if we can't even get to sports, which is also a tangible, more well understood thing than arts. So it's a miracle that I had the opportunity to go to an arts college, that I could pursue music, that my father put me in a guitar class, that I had the freedom to learn singing in my room and my parents not saying, "Tu kya kar raha hai?" To me, having the freedom in college to do side hustles to make money, clients giving me money and paying freelancers on time. So many things had to work. So I kind of feel in India, it's too new. But stand-up, I feel, is also a very one-dimensional profession as well. Like I took a workshop for children and I made them do stand-up. And then the kid said, "Why do I have to use a mic? Can I walk around and do a mime?" And then he said, "Why do I have to play myself? Can I play a character? Can I play 2 characters?" Then I realized, oh my God, why am I introducing such a limiting art form to a child? So stand-up is also a very limiting art form. So you come to stand-up when you've discovered the other art forms. You've discovered, I'm not saying you can't. A lot of adults come into stand-up for the first time. So it's a very complicated answer. I feel like instead of being like, how do I retroactively become a stand-up comedian? I think the challenge is, how do I become good at artistic expression in any form?
So your journey kind of took you through so many different art forms, and each of them are considered as linear lines. So this is my problem with the way that education is looked at, right? So everything is considered as linear, and I struggle with it because nothing is more linear than medicine. Right? Like 10th, 12th, MBBS, MD, it's just like a straight line, and there's not much deviation. It's all very straightforward. But in art, that's not really the case. So to be a good stand-up comic, from now, the way I understand it is, the more wider experience you have, all of it helps.
Yeah. And you know, what you're saying, I envy. My biggest frustration with uncertainty is that why isn't there a path for stand-up comedians? Why can't I get a venue and tell them I have a PhD in stand-up comedy? I have done stand-up comedy from Stanford. There's nothing like that. So it's very frustrating as well. So I'm giving you a rosy picture, but it is a traumatic kind of journey of rejection. So when I look at Trace, who's done a dentistry and stuff, I love how linear it is. How if I have a piece of paper from a reputed college, that means something. But with my profession, I don't know why people are giving me a gig. Maybe because of my social media number. Maybe they think I'm a nice person or I'm reliable. Or maybe my jokes they think is funny. I have no idea.
But it's subjective throughout.
It's subjective. What you're saying. So I feel it's a gift and a curse. The linearity is a gift where you know what your next path is. Like we had this Amazon show called Comic Sans, which I don't think is happening anymore, which is such a shame because it is the first path for comedians in India to be like, oh, if I get on Comic Stan, I will be seen as a comedian. That is one thing we had. That's also gone.
Yeah.
Now the path is maybe I should make reels on Instagram, maybe put YouTube clips. But if you're going to put a YouTube clip of a stand-up comedy bit, that means you have to have the connect to go to a venue, sell 30 seats at least,
Yeah.
have the money to set up a camera, have the money to edit it and mix it, and you have one clip.
Yeah.
So there is no path. So it's a gift and a curse. I'm kind of glad in a way that it's not linear, but at the same time, we wish there was something for us.
Right. So but I would say that if somebody is out there looking to be a stand-up comic,
Yeah.
your journey is interesting because it shows that at no point are you on the wrong track.
Yeah, definitely not.
Whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
you are probably on the right track if ultimately what you want to do is stand-up comedy. Even if you are, say, writing a song, or even if you are being a sketch artist somewhere, it's still expression.
Yeah.
And those networks in your brain are still getting wired.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when you get up on stage, it will still help.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you have to do this to be a good comedian. There are comedians who start at 40 and they have no theater experience. They have no writing experience, but they're damn good at telling a joke.
Yeah.
That's more than enough. So it's quite beautiful also.
Yeah, it's just the non-linearity is really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's say we take only the comedy part of it, right? They don't want to be a stand-up comic, but comedy has value. Like you said, laughter is a social emotion.
Yeah.
And comedy has a lot of value in conversations, in even in commercial success, in say in a corporate boardroom meeting. If you're funny, there are things that you can get done without having to resort to more aggression. Have you found this useful? Have you found comedy to be useful outside of stage?
So I'm just giddy with this question. It's my favorite thing to talk about. I feel so happy that I'm a funny person, and I feel so happy when I meet another funny person.
Right.
And you have a lot of stand-up comedian friends, right?
Yes.
Before I answer the question, I want to ask you, how do you see a difference? Do you see with the good and the bad? How do you think they're navigating through their lives or their interactions?
So I have a theory. I feel that a lot of people are funny in a circumstance that they are comfortable in, right? When they are with their friends, they're super funny, but otherwise they may not be so funny. I feel that stand-up comics, the ones that I've come close to, they have figured out this knack of sensing something funny is there in this space. So say a normal person, quote unquote normal person, would find something funny when it happens. And I think a stand-up comic develops this sixth sense that, okay, nothing's funny here right now, but there's something funny about this topic. And so if you take it down this road, it will hit upon a joke. And I won't be able to prove it, but I feel that stand-up comics take conversations down roads which are funny. Is that true?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So Seinfeld said this recently that, you walk into a comedy club mid-set, everybody's having a great time. It seems like a fun room. It's exciting, it's interesting, it's intriguing. But it wasn't like that when the set started. When it started, the comedian went on stage, the audience was quiet,
Right.
maybe even hostile, maybe like, let's see if you make us laugh.
Right.
And the comedian's also nervous. So from nothing, he or she creates this environment of fun and joy and laughter.
Right.
And that's what a stand-up comedian does. And that's also to some extent what funny people do,
Yeah.
is create that vibe from nothing. And it's you said it so nicely, like it's kind of there everywhere, but they pick it up and they nurture it, and they're like, hey, and it's almost like an alley-oop. But then even the not funny people can
get converted,
give tags, engage with it. So just to give a bifurcation, I think it'll help a lot of people who are getting to stand-up comedy, that just because you're funny in a friend group doesn't mean you'll be funny on stage. And it's not a bad or a good thing. It's just two different things. A person who can be funny with strangers in a very short amount of time is a stand-up comedian. And a person who in the right context is comfortable, is happy with people he knows, is just a nice fun person. They're funny, but they can't create it. And usually if you mix it up, it doesn't work. This fun person in a group, put them on stage, they're nervous, they don't know what to say, they're not funny. You put the stand-up comedian in a social situation, awkward, very unlikable, not sociable. So they're two different things. So you just want to separate those two. That stand-up comedy and being funny, two different things. And it's okay.
This is so important because there will be so many people who with their friends, they are hilarious. And somebody will say, oh, you should do stand-up comedy. But that may not always be the case, is what you're saying.
Two best friends, Tara and Jason, are way funnier than me. And I laugh, like it hurts my stomach, like how much they make me laugh. But they are funny people in a group. And they think what I'm doing is torture. Like, why would you inflict social rejection on stage every other day? Why are you going on stage to people you don't care about? Giving them joy. I'm giving you joy because you're my best friend. And I want to see you laugh. If they're not only you don't know them, you don't care about them, they'll heckle you also. Why are you in this?
Putting yourself in that position.
I'm like, no, man, you won't understand. So those are two separate things. Now, I genuinely feel that you can become funnier. You can't become funny. Because what is being funny? It is not just, people have this misconception is what you're saying. It's not what you're saying. It's what you're saying. It's how you're saying it. It's the intention of it, what you're saying it. It's the context of what you're saying it. It's with the camaraderie and the physical chemistry you're saying it. It's with the right time and environment you're saying it. And it's being clever and surprising. So it's a lot of things. And I must have missed out a lot my angles. So not being funny is not saying some things. That's the big misconception. So if it's all of this, then I don't think you can just learn it. But if you have all of this in like 1 or 2%, you can become funnier.
So you need that basic spark. And then the rest of it can be practiced.
Yes. And that spark is essentially what I think is risk taking. It's social risk taking. If I just meet you, Sid, and I make a joke, right? And a good joke is a risk. So if I say, hey, Sid, that person over there, I don't think the neurons are firing as much, right? Now, I'm obviously being a dick, but I'm also being a dick, assuming that I trust you. You take this in a lighthearted way. I'm showing you the kind of person I am. I am trying to create this vibe of you're a neurosurgeon, and neurons frying. Oh, I get it. And I'm also addressing a situation that's the elephant in the room, that this person is slow and is annoying all of us. And I don't know you well enough to make this attempt. Now, there are only two outcomes to what I've just said. One is, I guess it's a shock if there are any neurons, right? And I'm like, success. Not only this Sid is chill and we're both a little judgmental and we're being like all friendly. He's also funny. And he connected with my neuron joke. He didn't just say true. He also made a neuron joke. So he's also interesting. He's also funny. Or the second thing is like, oh, okay.
That's kind of rude.
I mean, you won't say it, but okay.
Correct.
That's because you don't know
subtitle.
Me. You're like, we're not this close for you to be making this. I can't recover from that. That's it. This relationship is done.
It's done.
I have to walk out the door.
Oh man, this is blowing my mind right now. So every joke at I love the social risk angle. It's like throwing a fish line in the water. And you don't know what that person will do, but one joke and one response can tell us so much about a person. And so if you're navigating a new social scenario, a joke is a great way of understanding that group. So say if I'm at a party and I don't know anyone, I could make a joke and it will be a social risk. And if it works, there's high payback. High reward. If it bombs, huge loss.
You're that weird guy making weird jokes. Like, and he's rude and narcissistic. And people do this, by the way, but they don't do it with jokes. They do it with trauma bombing. And trauma bombing also has a risk and reward. If I just met you and I just say like, Sid, It's tough, man, trying to survive in Bombay. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to build a connect with you.
Right.
You could see it as two ways. Yeah, dude, I agree. I have moved from another city. It's very hard. Or like, oh, here's another guy whining about his life.
Yeah.
So people do that all the time. It's a quick way. That also has a limit. You can't go with, hey, I have erectile dysfunction, man. That's too much, bro. I don't need to hear this. But that's what a joke is. It's a fine line of how much do I let in?
Yeah.
But if it works, it works. And don't recommend this with anybody. Like, and another thing I want to bring up is a lot of people think being funny means being rude. Or funny means making fun of. Like the example I gave, I made fun of someone else.
Right.
But if I made fun, like if I met you, another scenario, I met you for the first time and I said, I can say two jokes. One joke is, said you're a neurosurgeon, right? What do you think my brain is small? Okay, dumb, stupid joke. Or like, hey, said you're a neurosurgeon, right? Dude, I need your help. Do you think I have a brain? Okay, so it's the same joke, same subject. In the first joke, I'm putting you in a negative connotation that you're a neurosurgeon, you must think you're smarter than everyone, you're better than everyone, and you probably think you're better than me. But I'm being funny. No, you're not. It's just
So
being,
that undercurrent of pulling somebody down in a joke, even if you're not saying it, everybody feels it. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is like a science. Okay, I need to ask this. Have you come across a perfect opener joke that you can use to get to know a crowd?
I mean, my my latest new joke is, it's so nice that all of you have come to see me live and buy tickets because there are a lot of people who watch me online like cheap fuckers. Now everybody laughs and everybody's like, we're not cheap fuckers, okay, we came to see you. Or they just laugh. They're like, okay, clever. He's thanking us with a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Now, again, it just sets the tone of, I love you, but I'm going to make fun of you. And this is also a risk. A lot of people could get offended. Like, how dare he call people who watch online cheap? I used to see him cheap, but I don't think about all that. I'm just taking that risk. I lose, I win.
Beautiful.
So there's no right answer. I'm just saying that's why I said I don't recommend this as a conversation opener or a dating opener where you're like, oh, Kenny just said that this is a social risk. So maybe instead of it's an antithesis to small talk. Instead of doing 2 hours of small talk, you go straight to the juggler and be like, hey, Sid, I think you're not firing as much. Yeah. But it's a very risky thing because...
And probably
balance it out,
probably a time saver also. Because you can really get to the core of a person and you know whether to invest more time or not.
And we do that with our friends, right? When there's extreme comfort.
Yeah.
Like if somebody comes and said, you won't believe I had another fight. And then you just make a very condescending joke of like, how long is the relationship gonna last, dude? And you don't mean that, but they're like, okay, shut up. I have to tell you about my problem. Yeah. We do that with our friends because we know we have that. I know whatever I say, you understand me. But yeah, it's a complicated thing, and that's why I said you can get funnier where you take this small risk, and every conversation you keep upping the ante. Yeah. But if you don't get it, because it's such a complicated read of a situation. If you're at a funeral, you can't make a joke like, glad this guy's gone. Yeah. But if you know this person was annoying and be like, at least he's not talking anymore. And if the other person knows that this person was very annoying, you're like, okay, I'll laugh.
There was a series called Coupling.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
So it's a British comedy. It's, I think, quite old. And they had a scene where at a funeral, you might suddenly feel like laughing. And then once you get that feeling, it will keep building up until you need to laugh because it's absurd. Yeah. You're not supposed to laugh in a funeral, which is why the bar for something funny is so low at a funeral because it's absurd, right? So, when I the reason I bring up absurdity is I once saw. I'm a big fan of an old series of yours called Star Boys. Yes. First of all, what made you make that? I've always wanted to ask you.
It's narcissism and faith that people might think this is a good idea. Star Boys, for people who don't know, is a science fiction spoof comedy short series based in space about 3 space roommates who are going through space and experiencing adventures. And it was set in the style of Star Trek, the TV show, not the movies, the TV show. So it was, and the lingo was Bangalore lingo. So it's made for 5 people, I think. Okay. You have to know what science fiction is, what Star Trek is, what 70s TV is, what Bangalore lingo is to enjoy the show. So rightfully 5 people enjoy it.
Hit warp drive, macha.
Yeah. Some Murgesh Palya. Some 5 people will get this joke, dude.
So
it's a miracle it got made. I just made it because honestly I wanted to see a show like that. And this is the opening discussion we had. That one of my regrets is I experimented too much. I should have just done what works. A lot of people got upset with me. They were expecting me to put some stand-up comedy show, funny show. I just put this bizarre science fiction. And they're like, ye kya? And half of it is in Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam.
Yeah, I know.
And I didn't even put subtitles. And people are like, I can't understand what this is.
Yeah. Kenny, I really want to like this, but what is this?
You have created obstacles for us.
Let's go a little deeper into this point of social constructs. You brought up autism. It's a very, very important point because the way we take and the way we understand society is very subjective. And it is also a high level construct, like you said. So the brain has evolved over many, many years to pick up cues that we don't even know that we're picking up.
Yeah, when I read about autism, I just didn't realize how we take it for granted that when somebody enters the room, you can look at them and be like, they're tired. They may be thirsty. They need to sit down. And I like these social cues are so precious for our well-being. And I was like, oh my God, being on the spectrum means you lose access to it. And I feel like with comedy, it's literally like you understand what should be said, but you were like, why don't I try something?
Right.
You know, and it's a big privilege for somebody to hear your joke, to not take it as offense, and for you to also present it in such a lovely way that they have a laugh out of it. And you create social bonding versus the regular, nice to know you, what do you do, where you're from.
Correct. Because that is expected. So humor exists because people have the ability to predict what a normal social response is.
Exactly.
And so you're able to break that prediction and therefore create humor.
It's on top of it. You're like, I know how this conversation can go. How would I spice it up a bit? You know, for fun. But the price is I could completely mess this up. That's how arrogant I am.
So, okay, let's go deeper and get a little practical. Okay. You are sitting across somebody. For example, you're on a first date with someone. You've never met that person before. Now, there is a socially accepted way of behaving, which is, hello, how are you? What's your life like? Whatever. Now, can we use humor to sort of up the social risk without going overboard? So is there a way to gradually increase or introduce risk in a conversation using jokes as a form of getting to know that person, as a form of increasing intimacy? Is there a way of using humor to do that?
So I would create a bunch of safe foundation first.
Okay.
The first safe foundation is your intention. I think people, especially women, are very good at reading intention. So you inherently have to be interested and genuinely want to form a connection with this person. It has to come from within. And I'm not giving some bullshit. Even on stage, I feel like when I come on stage, the audience knows I want to be here and I value them and I'm not taking them for granted. So that has to be my base because it leaks. You have all these social ticks that you don't know. Right? So just genuinely from your heart, care about the person. Second is, I feel it's important to establish that you are a serious person first. That's more important because being too funny is also irritating and annoying.
Right.
That I can't have a straight conversation with this person because everything's a joke to them.
Right.
So that's also bad. So if you establish that, if you ask a very personal question like, tell me something about your family, which is a very common question on a date, or maybe you did it over text, I would recommend don't make jokes on text because that's, again, the assumption that being funny is what you say. It's not. Its tone, its intention, its environment, its context, its physical body, everything. So don't do, if you're new to being funny, just avoid the one dimensionalism of texting. Just do it in person.
Oh, this is such a valuable advice.
No, even with arguments I have in my relationship, I've realized it just gets worse on text. In person, you can see the person is concerned, is sad. All that you don't get from texting.
Right.
So once you're with the person, you've established that when they spoke about their family, you didn't say, I also hate my brother. You said, I understand. It's tough having siblings. So and it's coming from a good place. You're not bullshitting. I
Right.
repeat, do not bullshit with people. They will pick it up. And once you've established this base level of, I can tell something to Sid and he will not mock it.
Right.
And then small talk also has purpose. When I said comedy is social risk and it is an antithesis to small talk, but small talk has its purpose. In your small talk, you compliment them genuinely. You are concerned about them. You order your food. And now we have base reality. She or he knows that their intent is nice, they're sweet, and they're serious. Now is time to be playful. And now, maybe she said, I have tough time with my sister. And you're like, I understand. On text, you said, it's tough to have siblings. And again, she's come and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm late. I had a fight with my sister. I'm like, oh, sorry, it's fine. I ordered something for you. Now, the third time she brings up the sister, be like, oh, sorry, my sister's calling. I'm like, man, that bitch. And then she knows, the context. She
Right.
knows you've empathized with her. And I'm saying it very obviously exaggeratedly, like, that bitch calling again. You know what? She's just jealous you're having a good time. Now, obviously, I don't mean this.
Right.
And obviously, I've acknowledged the serious part before. Now she's going to giggle like, hey. Then she's going to start supporting her sister. Being like, hey, she's not that bad also. She's like, yeah, it's fine. Anyway, I mean, once we get married, she's not allowed in the house. So now we are like playfully also pushing and reiterating the purpose of this meeting. And also subtly showing commitment. And then she's going to be like, you're not going to now you're doing role playing. And that's the power of humor. Like you went
Right.
from my sister's calling and she's annoyed and her mood is ruined to now you guys are role playing a fictional. Again, this could
reality.
backfire. Okay, please don't do role playing of marriage. Or you could just be like, I'm sorry, I'm very protective of you. Do you want me to handle this? Do you want me to talk to your sister? I can do it.
Sure.
So in a playful way. So there's so many ways to get into this. But the baseline was, I'm a capable and emotionally aware person and I care about you.
That is a beautiful construct because you've also established that all humor has to stand on top of safety. So one of the reasons why jokes backfire or people take offense is because they feel threatened, right? Because they weren't there in that space. So
Yeah.
I've seen people attend a comics show, laugh at jokes that they otherwise would have found offensive if they heard the joke in isolation.
True.
Because the comic has spent that time establishing that, hey, this is a safe space, this is a safe room, and this is all in jest. So then they get into that
And we've
comfort
all
zone.
experienced this. The different version of this is, hey, one funny thing happened yesterday and you repeat it and it's not funny.
Not funny. Yeah.
What has this happened is the same thing what you're saying. That
Right.
the context and the vibe and the feel couldn't be recreated.
Right.
Because humor is very complicated and it's very dependent on the environment.
Yeah.
You can't look at it in isolation.
I wanted to kind of wrap up the power of humor.
Yeah.
Okay. In our general conversations. So kind of summarizing the stuff that we spoke about today, which is the journey towards being a stand-up comic has obviously a lot of ups and downs, but there's no one linear path to it. You said that your journey took you through stage, through music, but somebody else's journey could be very different. But even if they don't end up being a stand-up comic, they could still use humor in their other life situations. And that humor is a social risk. And you can use that to enhance conversations. Are there other takeaways from humor, other ways in which humor has helped you
Yeah.
that you would like to share?
My positive influence, I was actually sitting back and people talk about who in your family is funny. And I kept thinking about that because my family or our parents' generation wasn't blessed with opportunities to express their creative gifts. But then I started thinking like my mom's brutally funny. My dad makes PJs all the time. My aunt's husband was this incredibly sophisticated, suave, sarcastic man. And he used to never give a straight answer. So, like, if you went to church and came back and you're like, you went to church, he's like, no, actually, I have another family. I went to check on them. And he says it, and it's so like cool, you know. And I'm like, damn, man, uncle is so funny and cool and dry. And I feel if you're funny, you should protect it with all your might. It's a beautiful flame in your personality
Right.
that you should nurture. And it the social risk also, I'm like, kya hua? You try to make people laugh and you failed. Oh, that I think is a noble quest, you know, than trying to offend people or challenge people or
Right.
so question the beliefs, you know, intellectual drive. But I feel if you just want to make people happy, lighten up the mood, it's an invaluable gift. So even if you don't want to be a stand-up comedian, and if you're just a funny person or you do funny things, as you said in the corporate setting, just treat that like a skill that you
Yeah.
should actively and consciously nurture
Yeah.
and bring it into everything. People have this misconception that being funny means people don't take you seriously, and I've experienced that, where when I have meetings, I kind of make a joke and then I kind of lose authority in people's eyes.
Right.
So I realize, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe humor has its place, but 99% of the time, you've just made everybody's lives better, and people are happy to see you. You're happy to be there, and I'm so happy when I meet funny people. Like it makes life worth living, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so don't it doesn't have to be an end goal of stand-up comedian or make funny reels or
Right.
just if you're a funny person to be around. I have fond memory. He passed away, and I think I really miss him only because he showed me how a normal evening on a Wednesday, I don't know, in the house is memorable because he made that family joke. He made that day very special, you know, with nothing, as you
Yeah.
said, right? There was
Yeah.
nothing in that room. He went to church and came back. And he just made this killer joke.
And these kind of jokes stay in the family's memory.
Yeah.
Like there are jokes that my parents talk about my grandfather cracking 30 years later.
Yeah.
You remember he cracked that joke.
It's so nice.
So these are memories that come from nowhere. You don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful thought. Kenny,
Thanks, Sid.
it has been such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
It's been amazing. And I love the fact that you've thought so deeply about it.
Yeah, I love it.
And I don't know if all stand-up comics do this.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
You have to know because you're constantly taking many risks with the audience.
Right.
And also you ask yourself, why did people laugh? Why didn't they laugh today? Why do they laugh when I change this word? Why do they laugh when I say it this way? That curiosity, I also feel like you become a stand-up comedian. Right? It's a byproduct of this way of thinking.
Wow. So you have to be insightful enough to question
Yeah.
people's reaction to you
Yeah.
in order to become a good stand-up comic.
It's a byproduct. It's not the other way around. Because you observe everything and because you keep breaking it down and keep poking and screwing around with conversation is why you became a stand-up comedian. I've been recently doing podcasts and I'm like, man, I should be doing more of this because I love these conversations, especially with you, like to dissect it like a science
Yeah.
because you have that knowledge. I'm only talking to other comedians.
So that's what because I've seen that Ken's podcast. I've seen a couple of episodes. I think the one with Abhish, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that comics do go deep.
Yeah.
And that they are thoughtful because they do need to go into the nitty-gritty of their joke. And even in Abhish's podcast, right, the journey of a joke.
Yeah.
I've seen how every comic has their own way of
It's very cool.
seeing how a joke is formed.
Like Raul Dua,
Yeah.
who I thought was a very natural, like verbal improv comic. He makes an Excel sheet, divides each word.
What?
Each word he's put a funny rating on it. And I was like, what? This is how much you're dissecting it? And another person who I thought was very like to the word is just winging it. So I'm just like, okay,
Wow.
many parts to
So you're rating the funniness of a joke.
of a
That is
word
of a word.
in the joke.
So that is Jerry Seinfeld level stuff, right? Like I think Jerry Seinfeld counts syllables.
Yeah,
Apparently, like
It does.
he's
Because it's a rhythm.
it's a rhythm. So is pineapple funnier or is apple funnier?
Yeah,
Like
it's very true.
what?
It's
How
very
deep
true.
do you go?
It's very true. And it's very cool because it's like an organism, okay, the audience. You say something and the organism laughs. And you say something, organism has now pulled back. I have to get them back. It's like it's
Like a
very cool.
blob.
Like a blob. And you can feel it. I don't know, we feel it
Yeah.
when the audience is not with us. Like the blob is upset. Get the blob back. It's very cool.
And does the size matter? The size of the audience?
The bigger the size, the bigger the blob. The smaller the audience, the harder it gets. Because then the blobs don't want to be a blob. They become individual people.
So you're saying that performing in front of 6 people is harder
Way harder.
than 6,000 people.
6,000 be much easier.
What is this logic?
If the environment is good, if they're all sitting and they can all see you, 6,000 people is easier than 6 people.
Tell me why.
Because the social mob mentality in a positive way happens, where if 6,000 people are feeling something, they all connect and they all reject. You do have like spurts of people,
Sure.
obviously exceptions, but it is a unanimous feeling. Everybody's feeling at the same time. It's quite beautiful. When you come to a live, people who see stand-up on YouTube are not even seeing the beauty of stand-up. You come to a live show, it's another vibe. only.
Holy shit. I just understood how politicians work.
Yeah. Riling them up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the blob. You rile up the blob.
It's easier to rile up a blob than it is to rile up a person.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
They can pick up on your bullshit. And what happens is that social stress of being rejected. Like if everybody's laughing.
Right.
And if I'm not laughing. Or if everybody agrees with this point. Or if everybody's having a good time. There's something wrong with me.
With me.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we're scamming you. I'm just saying that okay, I'll give you a better analogy. Is it easier to dance by yourself or when there's a huge crowd?
100% in a
It's
crowd.
just that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it like evil and say this we are
Yeah.
like, you're all sheep. It's just people are social beings and it's easier for them to enjoy something if they just go with the crowd.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The final point that I wanted to ask you was that you have to be a keen observer, which a lot of scientists also are, which a lot of philosophers also are, a lot of artists also are. But stand-up comedy brings observation, but they also add something special, which is irreverence. So nothing is off limits. Nothing cannot be joked upon. Is that something that you have to be born with, or is that something that you develop?
I think it comes back to the earlier point of the social risk thing, that you know that you're not supposed to say this.
Yes.
And you know that, and when I say you're not supposed to say this, it's usually the truth. You get a reaction only from truth. So it's like you have that uncle who's toxic in the family, and all of you have just been polite for years and years and years and years and years and years. And this uncle says something, and you just turn to that uncle and say, "Uncle, that's not true." And then everybody in the room is like, "Thank God." Yeah. Somebody finally said it. And it's not a win. Uncle will be like, "No, I'm saying it." You're like, "Okay." But is that moment of truth persevering? So that's what comedy is. It's like, as a comedian, you live your life and something horrible is going on or some annoying thing is happening. And you're like, I need to tell the truth because nobody else is bringing it up. Yeah. And when you go and bring up that truth, it's such a relief for everybody. Like, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing, but this person has just verbalized it in a beautiful way also. You can't just say and get your claps. Because you're a comedian, it has to be structured in a funny way. But if you tell truth in a funny way, and I'm not romanticizing truth, I'm just saying simple things like one favorite joke of mine from long ago is, if your mom asks you to do something, and if you don't do it in 3 seconds, she'll do something far worse, which is do it herself. So everybody knows this.
Yes.
That if your mom asks you to do something, you don't do it, she'll do it. And that's very sad. Like, Mom, you don't do it. Can we just not do it at all?
Correct.
You doing it makes it worse.
Correct.
So it's that even silly truths like that is
Yeah.
very endearing. And I was talking to another comic about it. Like, what makes a joke memorable and what makes a joke you laugh and you forget about it is that it's a universal truth. And that's tough to find.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when you see another good comic perform, you're jealous that they have uncovered a gem that is right in front of all of us. And that gem is now that person's. You can't claim it. Like, that comedian. That's why I get very upset when people plagiarize jokes.
Right.
Like, this was a common observation. I'm like, no. We made it common.
Right.
And now it seems obvious. So you can't disregard the work. It's kind of like when people disregard doctors.
Yeah.
I know I had a tooth pain and they just resolve the tooth pain. It's like it takes a lot of work to find it, to resolve it, and to fix the problem. So when you find a gem of a universal truth, when you hear it, you're like, obviously. But till that person said it, it was lost to all of us.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible. So that's what a comedian does. So it's not sometimes coming from a point of political truth or revolution. Sometimes comedians just want to address
the truth, because that is how society progresses, right? So like, this brings me back to the first point, which is scientists and philosophers are also observing to uncover truth, but their method is different, and you need them to have that sense of creativity to push truth in that respect. But what about social truths? So journalists will do it. And now I'm thinking that the other pillar of society is stand-up comics. Because there are things that a journalist maybe cannot say.
I don't know. I think people are giving too much bow. I also feel like it's philosophy that's very well marketed. You know, stand-up comedians will tell a philosophical thought in a very beautifully packaged way.
Yeah.
And it's entertaining. And I also feel like instead of giving bhav to stand-up comedians, I would flip it and say that the audience is becoming too lazy. Like, if you are seeking truth from Neil Brennan said it, like, you know, there's some political thing happens and they're like, what do the clowns think about this? It's like, we are not important. And don't seek truth from comedians and entertainers. You're being very lazy. Like, a lot of comments I get, you should be talking about the environment. I'm like, how many environmentalists do you follow on Instagram? They're boring, no? You don't want to listen to them. I'm telling you things in a very entertaining way.
Right.
Why don't you talk about sexuality and freedom of expression? I'm like, journalists are talking about it. It's boring, no? You don't want to read.
Right.
You want it to be funny. Like John Oliver, you criticize him like, at the cost of a joke, he's manipulating information. I'm like, then get information from the right source. You want it to be entertaining also and accurate also. So I put the onus on people. Like, don't give us so much power when you're being lazy. Like, you want truth. There are a lot of philosophers, journalists, environmentalists, truth seekers who have 10 followers. Because they're giving a 30-minute speech on this.
Great. It's like asking for vitamin supplements inside a pizza. Like, just get healthy.
You're a neurosurgeon and you have so many bits about how the brain works and how social situation works. But they want that date situation. Quickly, come on. Enough of this bullshit. Give me how does it help me in a date?
Always.
You know, Tanmay long ago gave me this nugget. I was called for a forum and they were like, you need to speak for 20 minutes. And I wrote the speech about how to creatively identify a topic, how to create a video, how to tell a story. And I was like, I'm sitting and practicing, and Tanmay is on the same forum. And Tanmay looks at me like, what are you doing, Kenny? I said, I have this responsibility. I've learned from this trial of 10 years, and these young kids are sitting. I need to tell them the process, the thinking, the value. They have come for hacks. Put 5 hacks in it and give it. That's what they want to hear. And I'm not dismissing Tanmay. He cares about people. But he understood that scenario.
Exactly.
That like, Kenny, this is not what you think it is. He said, he's a lovely guy, but he said this very funny thing. He said if they really wanted to, they would be out there making him. And I was like, damn. And he was right. I ignored his advice. I did my speech. They all got bored.
Yeah. So there is a Stephen King quote that, so he does a writing workshop and he tells them that everybody who's here in the audience actually does not want to write. Because if you wanted to write, you'd be out there writing.
Yeah, dude.
So everything is procrastination until you do it.
Anyone gives financial advice or like some advice online, I'm like, really good financial advice is very expensive.
Yeah.
They won't give it for free.
Yeah.
And nobody has to also. Please charge for your...
Yeah.
And also things have to be customized, right? Like...
Yeah, there is a statistic, right? Like the only people who've become rich from how to get rich courses are the people who make the courses.
Yeah.
Like, nobody else really benefits from that because most of the lessons anyway come from doing it.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing might apply here also.
So a lot of people ask me, I wanted to get into stand-up, and I found this very good analogy. I read it somewhere that you could read 100 books about swimming, or you could jump into the pool.
Yeah.
And I feel stand-up is just like swimming, that you can't read about it or plan it.
Right.
You have to jump on stage.
Right.
So it's just that. It's anytime somebody asks for advice, I'm like, anybody's giving you stand-up comedy advice, don't listen to them. Go and do it.
Go stand in front of a crowd and start.
And just bomb.
And bomb. Expect it.
It's horrible.
On that note.
Thank you. For your mental health, please don't do it. If you want to abuse yourself, do it. That's
the journey, right? A lot of stand-up comics say the same thing, that you have to go through that low in order to get.
Is it true though that the same parts of your brain that processes physical pain processes social rejection?
Yes.
So that's what I'm feeling on stage.
Yes. So it all ends up in that same space of withdrawal. Like, I don't want to be here. This situation is painful, as if somebody has hit me. Let me avoid this circumstance. That's why you feel like running away.
Yeah, it's horrific, dude.
Oh no.
I'll be doing an open mic, and open mic is when you do new jokes, and it's worse for me because if I was a new comic, they're like, I don't know him, obviously he's not funny. But if they see me and they get happy, and then I start doing new jokes and a bomb, they're like, why are you bombing?
Oh my.
And then I'm just like, I could have been at home with my wife. Chilling and watching TV. Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I trying to make these strangers laugh?
This is so unfair though, because there's no safe space for you to practice.
No, I'm just complaining. I love my job. I'm allowed to complain a little bit. I love you guys. Actually, to be honest, in India, if there's one thing that's supporting arts, it's the audience.
Yeah.
It's not the infrastructure. It's not the laws. It's not the taxes. It's nothing. The audience is the only one who's supporting any form of arts in India. So.
Yeah. And they do love you. They love
sweet.
the art form. They do come out. Like I've seen 11:30 p.m. shows being sold out at...
It's incredible. I'm like, you as a person took time, spent money to come here to listen to jokes. Thank you. And I hope you get what you want from this night.
Thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Kenny, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sid.
So good. Yeah.
I'm sorry for giving extra work to your editor.
No, man, there was nothing extra about this conversation. Every aspect of it was beautiful.
Yeah, man. I feel we could speak for another 2-3 hours. So if you guys like this, show it by sharing it, commenting, and then I'll come back. And if you don't like it, I get the message.
Guys, please like this video. I really want Kenny to come back for this. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.